Hello, welcome back to the Reading Rain Hose. It is now solo ho, me, Diana Diamond, your host, and also creator. And today we are jumping into volume 4 of Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. Now, I'm excited for this one. I'm also excited for the rest of the series, which we have one more to go. And I gotta say, I've gotta say, this after, and I mentioned this in our last video. Volume 3 was a little, she was starting to get a little, serious and a little like, bitch, what the fuck? And we follow up with where we left off, of course, which it left our boys, Nick and Charlie, our two protagonists here. It left them in a state of lovey-doveyness to the point where Charlie is in fact ready to say he loves Nick, and we still don't know entirely where Nick stands, because here's the thing. Nick, I would say, he's more or less been showing that he loves, showing that he loves Charlie, right? So, it's hard when let's say if you have a bit of an anxious attachment style where you kind of need to hear the words in order for it to translate, but to make sense to the individual. And so that's kind of where Charlie is. Like, he kind of he knows that Nick cares for him deeply, but the three words have not been said. So now is when we start to enter that realm of young love and what can blossom from it. So now I want to talk about the first time we said I love you. So, when we first say I love you, that is like one of those things that we're kind of thinking about when at the start of a relationship. It's like, when is the best time to even say it? Does the other person even feel the same way? And I think it can get a little tricky with that. Not tricky, but it can be intense. So I remember the first time I told a guy, that I loved him. It it was met with some hesitancy. Like, it was like one of those like I'm being all I love you, and then like I love you too. And so, you know, as the person who was on the receiving end of that, I can say with lots of confidence that it's not a really good feeling. And that's why it's also really important to like know fully where you stand in your relationship, right? And of course, like, saying I love you to someone is a risk. Like, you're taking that risk because, what if they're just not into saying that? There are people that actually do struggle with saying the words I love you. And I will admit, I can be one of them. I can be one of those people, because it's just the fear of not knowing, like, what the response can be. And so Yeah, for me, that was like the one and only time that I said it to someone that wasn't a family member. And, like, I tried. I tried, I went for it. And, that's kind of how that went. And that's obviously very telling as to where we are now. As we're like reading this as we're reading this novel, these graphic novels, as like feeling like a fucking like middle-aged woman that's like reading a bunch of like romance novels and getting off on that. But, that's, well, one of those things is right, and it's not the middle-aged part. So, last book, volume 3, the students went on to a trip to Paris. And now this time, they're staying a little more local. They're going to the beach. It's fine. Nothing crazy about that, right? Well, no, Charlie, excuse me. Charlie is now starting to, maybe notice Nick's body a little more, especially they're at the beach. We're taking our shirts off, boys, I guess, or yeah, taking our shirts off. However, Charlie kept his on. Now, we kind of saw in our last volume that Charlie was starting to come up on some like mental health issues, and particularly we're noticing with when it comes to eating, right? Like he had a moment in the museum. He had a moment there where kind of, you know, wasn't feeling so great. And I don't know, something's telling me that it might get a little deeper, right? Like as far as Charlie's as far as how Charlie handles this form of mental illness, right? It's never an easy thing to deal with without help. And we know many people in the world are struggling with that. And for some reason, it's kind of been made like taboo to not like seek that kind of help. Back then, I know these days it's a lot more accepted. But you still see family groups that are not really having the therapy talk. They're like, oh, that's for crazy people. And I'm like, girl, well, you know what? I'd rather be crazy then, because like I'd rather be crazy than whatever this is that you're doing. And mama, like, people need to go to some therapy. But we'll get to that later. Now, Nick is trying to figure out how to gently bring up the Charlie's eating disorder, or that he thinks there might be a problem. How to present that to Charlie. And so he invites Charlie out into the water, out into the sea or the ocean. And poor Charlie. This boy was so ready. Like, he thought this was the moment. He's like, oh, bitch, I'm about to tell my man I love him, and it's going to be cute. and in this and that. He also thought that he was also kind of hoping that Nick was going to say it first at that moment. Well, let me tell you what actually happened. What Charlie thought was going to be a cute and romantic moment, girl, Nick went and just immediately just shit all over that. He was like, "Bitch, I think you have an eating disorder." Not quite like that, of course. You know, that's just the Diana Diamond paraphrasing. And and so Charlie is just like gobsmacked because like, wait, I I thought you wanted to say something else. Which, if you think about it, it kind of can be a form of expressing your love, right? Like like Nick is genuinely concerned, like fully concerned. Like it is bothering him. Like my man's is doing like all types of research day in and day in and day out, and it's just like, girl, like, but Charlie doesn't know this. That's see that's a bit of the problem is that it wasn't communicated fully, but also how do you communicate something like that? Comments. How do you communicate? How would you communicate? How would you communicate that you love someone through your actions, right? Because right now, that's what we're seeing with Nick, right? He's speaking a little quietly, but speaking nonetheless through his actions. And but Charlie wants to say it. He wants to hear it. And don't blame him. I do not blame him because I've been there. We have been that girl. And so they spend time together after the beach. You know, Charlie's kind of still like confused as to what exactly just happened. And yeah, things get a little more awkward. So brace yourselves. So Nick asks Charlie if the eating disorder was what he wanted to talk about as well when they went out into the water. Charlie kind of lied, but then luckily had second thoughts. You know, I do believe that Tori, his sister, was kind of like whispering in his head, like, you know, because they did have a conversation earlier where like she did say like, tell him. And now, for any of y'all that have read the books or have seen the series, would know that when Tori says to do something, you're gonna or you probably should fucking do it because she is scary. Like Tori is so fucking scary, but like in the best way. But of course, it's one of those scaries that like you really want her on your side because you don't want to mess with her. You don't want to mess with Tori Spring. And so she said, "Bitch, do not come back into this house until you talk to that man and say what you want to say." And so Nick Nick then hops into the shower And then Charlie chooses that exact moment to tell him. So they have a curtain behind them or between them. They've got a curtain between them, and he just like essentially just blurts it out. He essentially blurts it out and then books it. Like he leaves faster than who knows even what, faster than Roadrunner would. And Nick still like in his shower. He didn't say anything, which is kind of what prompted Charlie's response. But with all of that, Nick, in those like 2 seconds that he didn't react, I think he was just fully processing because he needed, like, he kind of wanted slash needed to understand like what was happening at that moment. He's like, wait, this just happened. Like, my boyfriend just said, I love you. But also, he did the shit from behind the curtain, like while I'm in the shower. So, like, didn't even look at me. So in that, I'm kind of like a little annoyed with Charlie, but I also get it. You know, we start to understand that Charlie is a very anxious individual. And so something like that, like, yes, I get it. Like, if you do express a, I guess, a strong emotion to someone for the first time, like, it can be a little jarring for them. But also, like, it's like petrifying for the individual, like, that wants to say it, right? So, you know what? Comments, sound off. I want to hear it. Like, I want to hear. Actually, I want to hear y'all's awkward I love yous. So, y'all heard mine. I said it, and homeboy was a little like shaky about it. But shower. Who else? What else? What else have you got for me? Comments. I want to hear it. Any awkward I love you between you and a romantic partner. I want to hear it. And so Nick is so cute and like such a good boyfriend because he completely runs out of the shower, like throws things on barely. He barely throws clothes on. And his wonderful mother, she's like, "What's going on?" And then like, she's like, "At least put your shoes on." And he didn't have shoes on. And so, you know, we're seeing that, and yeah. So he ran after Charlie because, you know, like something major was just said, but he also didn't want to leave it unaddressed the way it would have been had he just let Charlie like run home. And so Nick finally he confronts Charlie. He catches him halfway. Confronts Charlie about that and is like, "Why did you say it while I was in the shower? Like, that's crazy." And Charlie was just like, "Bitch, I don't know. I was nervous. Like, I was nervous that you'd say, like, thank you." Oh, I saw that somewhere. They said, I love you, and they said, thank you. Was that like a Sex and the City thing? It could have been. It's also very possible. Because, like, that sounds like something that'd be on Sex and the City. It's like, oh, I told him thank you. I mean, I told him I told him I loved him, and all he said was thank you. It's like, girl, so maybe he just wasn't feeling you. Which, you know, like, sh- shout out to my ex for at least like faking saying that, you know, returning that. Again, I don't know if that was actually faked or not, but if it was, like I guess kudos to you for lying. I don't know. Like, would you rather comments? Would you rather a fake "I love you" or rather "I love you too" or a genuine one? I mean, of course, the genuine one is like what we want. Flip that over. Not the genuine. If you were to get a thank you, the thank you return, right, as opposed to I love you too, or I love you, right? So yeah, that was so freaky, and yeah, so good for Charlie for at least saying it, but also good for Nick for running out of the house to say it back because he meant it. Like he did mean it. Like that's the thing. I just didn't think that he was ready for it at that exact moment, especially when they were talking about Charlie's mental health. You know. Speaking of mental health, I'm gonna completely unrelated. I'm gonna take a sip of this beverage. I know y'all have been staring at it, and let me tell you what it is, who was whom it was made by, and where. Well, as you can see, this is a lovely Boxer's glass. We are here at Boxer's Hell's Kitchen on a Tuesday night. And our lovely bartender was Jason. We love him. He made me a lovely mango margarita. So let's take a sip. Oh, and Boxers, thank you for letting us use the space. Thank you. I actually very greatly appreciate that. I know last week we filmed from home, which was actually kind of cute, right? Did y'all think that home was cute? It's not mine, but you know, it's someone's house. It's my mom's. Yeah, I don't know. It was like a cute vibe, just like sitting on the chair and just chatting with y'all. Anyway, mental health and this beverage. All right, let's see. Let's see what Gason produced. Oh, bitch. That is good. That is really good. If you are at Boxer's Hell's Kitchen or in Hell's Kitchen on a Tuesday evening, pop on by, get get yourself a margarita. Get yourself a margarita. So good, well done. No notes. Well, it's the notes, the the notes, and and thank you, Jason. You you turned this shit out. Mm, wow. All right. So while we're on the subject of mental health, wanna kind of wanna talk about that because yes, the boys do get deeper into that conversation and also what to possibly do, like moving forward. And the main issue that Charlie was having was that he felt that he couldn't communicate this with his parents. Now, that's hard. That is really hard. When you feel like you can't speak to your own parents, and many people in the world do deal with that. They there's an understanding that there are certain subjects that parents just won't really do well with, right? So for instance, as we're in the discussion of mental health, just a few weeks ago, I came to my mom. Actually, originally I was gonna call my sister, my best friend. Hey sis, I was gonna call her to have this conversation, to actually have this conversation with someone. And my mom and I were already engaging in conversation, and she herself has been dealing with some mental health issues. So, at that point, I understood that she, my sister would know as well, because, we were both battling shit out together at one point. But with my mom, the fact that it was happening at, like, in real time, like right now, it was one of those things that she was a great shoulder to cry on, like literally. Without going into too many details, I know I did say in the promo that we will get a little vulnerable. All right, you know what? Fuck it. Okay, since we're getting vulnerable and we're watching and we're reading and seeing pictures of teenage boys falling in love and all types of other teenage and life things, I over the years I kind of felt like I've been like dealing with some type of eating disorder. We're still undiagnosed, so nothing has been like solidified or like anything. However, it has been something that's been on my mind for a while because just paying attention to my own eating patterns and realizing that, like, bitch, how are you, first of all, how are you still alive? How are you still walking right now? But also, how are you not, like how are none of it, like, bones showing, any of that, right? And so I don't know. I guess I'm just an anomaly. I don't know. But either way, mom came through. Mom came through, and so did sister. Like we did eventually speak, and like, I that was one of those things that after I spoke to my mom about it, it was just a lot easier to do. And so at that point, when I went to go see my sister, it was more of a, like, I just have to tell you this because, like, you're one of my all-time best friends in the world, and, like, I want you to know this, just so you don't think that there or that you don't have to guess that there's something wrong with me, or that something's bothering me, or something's ailing me, right? Or just bothering me all around. Like, that was kind of how my dad expressed it was when I came out to him. He would always tell me that he felt that there was something wrong, or that something was troubling me. And so it was that. Like, I was holding in one of the, I guess, biggest parts of myself, my ideally, like, technically sexual identity, but then, like, coming out as non-binary to my parents was like, that was nothing. And yeah, that's tough. So, extra points for Nick for to offering to sit with Charlie while he speaks to his parents, right? Like, because he felt that, okay, so if your parents won't listen to you when it's just the three of you, maybe they'll listen when I'm there. Well, yes, Nick was absolutely right. Mr. and Mrs. Spring were fully concerned for their child. and they told him, like, we will do whatever we have to do to help you get better. And honestly, like, my mom said the same exact thing. She said the same exact thing, and it was, you never realize that it's something you need to hear, especially when you're dealing with something so serious and something so harmful to the self, right? So, with all of that said, Charlie Charlie and his parents worked together to try to get him to a better mental state. Now, when that does happen, ultimately Charlie has to go to a hospital, to stay in a hospital to work on this, right? So, like, it's basically a rehabilitation clinic, right, where you have your psychologists or psychiatrists or both, and they walk you through, but also, and nutritionists, they'll have nutritionists there to walk you through the process of reintroducing proper, like, wellness, eating well, right? And, like, different methods, behavioral changes, all of that. They work on that. So Charlie spends his time away, and Nick is kind of reeling from that and kind of having trouble because he's worried. He's very, very, very worried. So worried. He's so worried about Charlie. And I don't blame him. I would be too. Like, if my boyfriend had a fucking, like, eating disorder that was, like, really bothering him, and to the point where he was self-harming himself, which was also, like, on top of, like, bullying that he dealt with at his ninth year. So, that kind of all, like, piled up, it snowballed into, maybe he was cutting himself, and then, honestly, not eating, or choosing not to eat, that actually is a form of self-harm if you think about it. And if you already knew this, don't come for me. Don't try to make me feel dumb by saying, bitch, we already knew that. I'm readdressing it. And so, yeah, I feel like that is a form of self-harm. They, like, food is what nourishes your body. And now, for those of you that don't know me outside of this channel, I'm a personal trainer when I'm not doing drag. And so it kind of makes it hard to, like, practice what you preach when you're not really practicing. So, that's something that it's been a struggle for me, but we're going to work on it. We're going to work on it. My mom, like, honestly, my mom has been, like, really good about that. Like, she'll more often than not check in on me and, like, just be like, "Hey, there's food. Like, are you going to eat now?" And, like, based on my reaction, cuz I've noticed a lot of my reactions have been, "Yeah, later." Girl, when later finally comes, I'm not eating a damn thing. That's crazy, right? Not crazy, but, like, you ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I like this right now? What happened? So, I think that is the importance of speaking to a professional about any type of mental illness, right? We need to stay on top of that, but we also need to stay on top of it with a professional. Like, sure, like your friends and family can like console you as best as they can, but unless they went to school for psychology and such, like we're no. Like I'll take your advice with the tiniest grain of salt because I don't know what you know. I know your credentials and they're not that. So so speak to a professional, please, 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 please. So Charlie gets out. They free Charlie, and after 3 months, he spends 3 months at this clinic, and his time back was a little hard, like the time to adjust and all that. But luckily, he came back, like back to his home during the holiday season. So Nick's elusive dad, the elusive Mister Nick, he has a French name. I can't pronounce it. I'm not French. I don't speak French. So, and it's not Nelson as Nick's last name is. Nick's last name is actually from his mother, whom we love. And so we meet Father Nick, Nick's dad. We meet Nick's dad, the one that the one that kept avoiding calls, the one that the one that when his youngest son hits him up saying, "Hey, I'm in the country. I'm in your city. I'd like to see you." It's also like my birthday. My man did not even call him back. I'm like, what kind of bullshit is that? Look, I know exactly what kind of bullshit that is. I know exactly. Don't ask me how. I know. And if you know, if if you know, you know. For those of you watching, for those that know what the real tea is. So Nick Nick has been so sweet when it came to the the what would you call that? Like not a disappearing act because like he'd have to be there in order for him to disappear. But just like the no call no show, like that's wild. But Nick's main concern isn't the fact that like his dad isn't checking in on him or looking for him like that. It has more to do with like just wanting to tell him about his relationship with Charlie and to tell him that he's bisexual because like that's a big deal to him. He came out to his mom and that was met very well. And so he knew that he had to tell his dad for some reason. Like, look, the guy isn't even like living, he's living all the way in fucking Paris and you're in London. Like, oh, it's like maybe a few hours, but like, really? Now, people are going to be like, oh, that's his dad. Nah. Fuck that. Look, if you fuck up as a parent and you don't acknowledge that you fucked up as a parent and you do absolutely zero diddly squat to make amends or to even try to repair the damage, like, don't even bother. Do not. Like, I'm sorry. Like, other people may have different opinions on this, but like, that's just wild to me. Like, why even sire a child? Anyway, Nick having trouble Nick having trouble sharing this with his dad resulted in his bullshit ass older brother to do it for him. First of all, we haven't really gotten into Nick's older brother. He is a major colossal dickhead. Oh my gosh. Like I just want to slap him like 50 times, like nonstop, like just back and forth, back and forth. Like, girl, shut the fuck up. You are talking a whole lot of nonsense and saying absolutely nothing. Nothing productive. Just being homophobic, being annoying. And the even crazier part about that is, and now age has nothing to do with anything. I think we've spoken about that in the past. Age has absolutely nothing to do with anything because Nick's brother is in university and acting like a fucking child, especially compared to Nick. And so lets out this big secret that Nick was struggling to, and then tried to be like, "Oh, I was trying to help." No, you weren't. You wanted to throw Nick under the bus and see what your dad would say, not knowing what he would say. So you didn't care that Nick was fully bothered by this and was like having a hard time gathering the courage to say it. Well, see, that's when good old Tori, because she was there, Tori came through because he kept trying. He kept trying. He was actually about to blurt out, but he basically like said it without saying it. Well, Tori then digs her nails deep into his forearm, which I thought was hilarious and also even better to watch on the show because like she like completely punks this guy and like he is petrified of her. And I don't blame him. Like I said, Tori is one of the ones you want on your side. This dickhead brother, his name is David. This dickhead David uh, 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 is gonna learn. He's gonna learn today who Miss Tori Spring is. Okay. So Nick finally, first of all, curses out his brother for starting shit for no reason, and then shares with his dad. Then shares the real tea with his dad. So, you know, we're kind of happy that he like did it. He did the damn thing, and so now, you know, they're feeling better. Nick and Charlie went outside because Nick was very heated. He needed to cool off, and Charlie goes after him, and oof, 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 oof. So, Dad was nice because he defended them, the boys, and like kind of um like he kind of reprimanded David, and so did oh my gosh, so did the mother. That was amazing because she put that mofo in his place. She said, "Bitch, you don't even live here. So what are you talking about? You shouldn't be saying anything right now because you haven't seen your son in a long time. You haven't even seen him for his birthday. So like, like don't even say anything." We love mom for that because my mom would be that person. My mom's been that person. She has definitely been that person. And so, that's definitely something that most, if not all, people can appreciate because like we love when someone's like so real that they'll back you up no matter what. But like especially if it's a parent. Like if your parent backs you up like that, like you've got a great parent. Like you want a parent that will back you up that will have your back no matter what. Well, that's within reason. Within reason. Like if your child is out here murdering people, like girl, I'm sorry. Your child needs to go to jail. They need a whole bunch of things. And so yeah. So it kind of goes well. It kind of goes well because like he did it. Nick shared what he had to say to his dad, and then like the response wasn't the response was not negative at all. It was not negative. Like he was very supportive, and so that was part of why I thought we were going to have an audience. The door opened. Lost my train of thought. That is why. Oh, support. That is why Nick Nick felt better about that. Like that was aside from Charlie's eating disorder, that was like one of the big things that was like bothering him. And so, he did that. You did that, Nick. You ate. So, so earlier on in that chaotic evening, Nick wants to after, everything's all said and done, he wants to just go out for a drive with Charlie. Nick just got his license. They have a car. So they want to do a little joyride. So Nick, no, Charlie then asks his parentals for permission if he can stay out just a little later, at least, just a little later, an hour or two. That's it, nothing crazy. And you know what? His mom, who's been very problematic, by the way, like not problematic, but like kind of allowing her own fears and like upbringing to control how she brought up her kids or how she dealt with dealing with her children, particularly Charlie, because he was gay, and then he had that very difficult year and all that other stuff. So she was like overly concerned, which fine, but like he's a teenager, you gotta let him live a little. Like you gotta let him live a little. Like it was the holiday break. Like he wasn't in school. He didn't have anything to do. Like just let the boys go out. Well, she did. She said, "I want you back by 11," which I think is very generous, especially for an almost 16-year-old. I think that's fairly reasonable. And so that's one of those things where like Charlie's Charlie's mom also has that moment of growth and like understands that she's been very untrusting. She hasn't been trusting Charlie very much. And she had no reason to either. Cuz like Charlie wasn't a bad or isn't a bad kid in any way. Like he's not out in these streets doing shit like wrong. Like he's going to school, he hangs out with his friends, they don't do like illegal things. So like relax. But anyway, enough of that. Cuz Charlie ended up being able to go for a ride with Nick, and it was so sweet. And then that's when the story ended. That is when volume 4 ends. So, I'm excited for what's to come for volume 5 because we're about to dig a little deeper into not so much Charlie's mental health struggles, but now we're starting to see some of Nick's. We're gonna see some of Nick's. That's me, full circle. We're gonna see some of Nick's mental health issues. Not so much issues, but it's like small things that can impact you down the line, right? Or just in general. So I'm very excited to talk to y'all about that, and I'm also excited to hear what you had to say when we release the episode. So with all of that, thank you for joining. Once again, I am Diana Diamond. You can follow me on Instagram at Diana Diamond NYC. Instagram, right? I said that? Yes. And I will see you next week. Bye bye.